Hi, Chelsea.
Hello, hello.
Hey, real quick, I didn't see a template for today's meeting minutes. I could.
Everybody, it is 1 o'clock. There we go. The non-voting member check-in link has been dropped in the chat. I'm just doing a quick run through of our list to make sure we have everyone here. All right, my name is Dr. Chelsea. I serve as the program manager for the Region 10 Opioid Abatement Council, called Gateway to the Rockies, or GROC. Today is our November 10th full council meeting. We are going to start off with some attendance. Remember, if you are a non-voting member, please use the link in the chat or the QR code on the screen to do your check-in. Commissioner Dahlkemper.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you.
Commissioner Marlin.
He mentioned he may be just a few minutes late, but he'll be here.
Okay. Commissioner Hollingsworth.
Good afternoon.
I'm glad you have your voice back. Dan Atten or Luke Parr.
Good afternoon.
Heidi McCollum or Stephen Pott. Sheriff Armstrong or Greg Demo.
I am here, Kevin Armstrong. Good
Hello.
morning or afternoon.
Is Mayor Bud here? I don't think so. We did just have an election and Mayor Bud did retire, so we are working on a replacement for the Jefferson County rotating city members. I know Councilwoman Sophia also rotated out of term. Janine is not going to be here. Commander Cooper, Troy Cooper or Troy Jantz?
Troy Jantz is here.
Thank you. Dr. Story or Michael Miller? Dr. Ryan or Emily Cooper?
I'm here.
Thank you. I thought I saw you. Marie Larson or Elisa Witt?
Hi, everyone. Marie is here.
Thank you. Mary Berg or Barb?
Hi, it's Barb Weinstein.
Thank you. Sarah Casano or Dr. Gillingham?
Sarah Gillingham here.
Thank you. Janie Barker or David Jocelyn?
Janie Barker, I am here.
Thank you. Kristen Heath or Judge Jones?
Kristen Heath, I'm here.
Thank you. And then I saw Commissioner Marlin come in.
Yes, hello.
Hello. Are there any other voting members who snuck in?
Sarah Story's here, Public Health.
Thank you. All right, remember all non-voting members, please use the link in the chat. I will drop that again. Governance, we have approval of September 22nd meeting minutes. Remember, we did not have an October meeting because of the COAG conference, the state conference. Looking for a motion to approve or any type of amendment to the minute.
This This is Leslie. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the September 22nd GROC meeting minutes.
Thank you. Second?
It's Sandy. I'll second.
Thank you, Sandy. We will vote by opposition in the chat. All right, we have November 10th conflicts of interest. We'll start with voting members. If you are representing a county that receives funding from GROC, that would be a conflict of interest, and we'll just defer to the commissioners to report that.
Hi, this is Commissioner Hollingsworth with Gilpin. We are a recipient, so we do have a conflict.
Thank you.
This is Jeffco Commissioner Leslie Dahlkemper. We also, Jefferson County receives some GROC funding, and we have a conflict as well. Thanks.
George Marlin, Clear Creek County. We have a conflict related to funding for our co-responder program and our Mountain Youth Network program. Also want to report, because it's on the agenda, I don't think this is a conflict of interest strictly speaking, but I am on the board of the Jefferson Center for Mental Health.
For non-voting members, we do have Amber Dower here. She's our fiscal agent with Jefferson County. Amber Qatar from Common Spirit. They do have a presentation today. Erica Hag is on the advisory committee. She's the board chair for Resilience 1220 and ECHO. But we do have not being a board chair is not a direct conflict of interest. Tanya Wheeler is a grantee for Advocates of Recovery. Talia Rodriguez is a previous grantee from JCMH, and they have an agenda item today for proposal funding. Michael Miller is an alternate. Michael, you don't have to report that. Thank you. And Theodora Bartuski does not have any conflict of interest. We do have a Jefferson County appointment update, so I will go ahead and turn it over to Commissioner Dahlkemper just to formalize that.
I am so sorry, Chelsea. I was not prepared. This is for Commander Atten on our on the screen.
Commander Prang.
Yes, thank you so much. This is our rotating law enforcement position. We want to thank Mike Prang so much for being part of the GROC, and we're excited that Jefferson County Sheriff's Office has put forward Commander Atten to replace him, and we have approved Commander Atten for this role. Thank you so much.
Commander Atten, are we saying your name right?
I was just going to say, it's actually Aten. That's how it's pronounced.
Aten. Perfect. Aten. Thank you so much.
Bet you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Eric, do we need to do anything else, or just Commissioner Dahlkemper has to make that announcement?
The announcement is sufficient. The board has already taken action.
Awesome. Thank you. Our next order of governance is a discussion and vote around a resolution for the executive committee. And I apologize. I am still trying to figure out how to upload things in our new website. And I realized maybe 20 minutes ago that most of you could not see this. So the conversation from August was around identifying the commissioners by name or by position. And the executive committee went with the language consistent in the IGA and the MOU. So it's not necessarily a commissioner. It would be the GROC county voting member. So that could be a commissioner, a county manager, a deputy county manager, someone of significant decision-making power for the county. In this case, it is our commissioners, so their names would be changed to the county voting member. Floor is open for discussion.
Chelsea, I just noticed it says Bud.
Yes, we did not vote to take Bud off yet. He is still technically a voting member. So we will get to that amendment in January once, maybe even December, once Jefferson County has officially switched him out for his new replacement. And that was why we didn't want to name people, because now we've revisited this every meeting.
And
Do you
Dr.
mind
Chelsea, sorry, you have a couple of other changes too, right? We've moved to describe the fiscal agent in a general way. And is Marie Larson a change as well?
That was already approved.
All right.
Yeah, at the August meeting, we approved all of the changes except for the commissioner voting names, because Commissioner Dahlkemper was not at that meeting and raised some additional concerns at the full council meeting. And in the interest of time, I suggested we did an approval of everything except for the commissioner names, and we revisit that. So everything else has been approved up to this point.
Perfect.
This is Leslie. Unless there are further questions or comments, I'm happy to make a motion to revise the membership of the executive committee on in those three key areas as Clear Creek County voting member, Gilpin County voting member, and Jefferson County voting member.
Eric, can she make that motion as an executive committee member, or does it have to be a non-executive committee member?
Good question.
Yes, she can make that motion. She's a member of both.
Okay. So we are at a second.
I would second that, Tim Ryan.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. We will vote by opposition in the chat. And I'm not seeing anything, so this has passed. Thank you, folks. Next order of business is our grantee playbook. The purpose of the grantee playbook is a centralized guide to streamline grantee onboarding, contracting, compliance, and reporting for opioid abatement funding in Region 10. Key updates for cohort 2 are the combined 10% cap for administrative and indirect costs during the application period. We've included risk mitigation processes, including a budget reallocation form for any line item over 10%. What this form specifically looks like will change as we implement the AUNA grantee platform. We have our first demo of our build out tomorrow, so super exciting. There is a Word template that is in Appendix A or B. I think it's Appendix B, that just shows the council what that would look like so that we are tracking those changes. And then we do have a learning integration with quarterly learning forms for capacity building and compliance training and evaluation. Financial reporting essentials is that we have allowable costs aligned with Exhibit E. You have to provide documentation, receipts, personal identifying information redacted, and justification for the expenses are required. The reporting, we do have a quarterly reporting template with narrative, but again, that might evolve as the AUNA platform gets built out and the Omni team gets to consult on the evaluation plans. So we will continue to collaborate with the grantees and with Omni on and EUNA on what the best process will be. And then we did include a policy of any unused funds would revert back to the GROC unless an extension is approved. Based on the executive committee conversation, there is a policy about a 0 additional cost contract extension. That request must be submitted within the first 10 days of the final quarter of the award period. And then they would be able to report that change in EUNA under the amendment feature. Also knowing that with the budgeting in this grantee platform, we will be able to track in real time whether grantees are on track or behind or ahead of their spending with every invoice they submit. So it'll be a lot cleaner than using our Workday system. And then there's just a draft policy on unused grant funds, is that it would roll back into the GROC. This document was approved by the current grantees. There have been some minor revisions working with, honestly, huge shout out to Amber Dower for working on this expense reporting documentation, profit loss statements, payroll documentation, time and task sheets, just what do we need from grantees when they invoice during an audit. So huge shout out to her for working on this. There has been some changes there that the grantees have not seen, but that is compliance with our fiscal agent, so they don't have a whole lot of say in that. But we are willing to work on a one-on-one instance if documentation needs to be revised in some way, so that we're just working with the grantees the best that we can. And then I think that's it. This document was also reviewed by the executive committee as being prepared to come to the full council. So I'll go ahead and open the floor for discussion. Tanya, is your hand up?
Yeah, I'm just looking for clarification. I know that we had talked about this, Dr. Chelsea, but all of the receipts, where it says itemized receipts, is that also now in place for all the indirect expenses that are on the invoices? I know you and I had talked about this and kind of gone back and forth. I just need clarity.
Be on an individual basis, and Amber and I did meet with the state last week to talk about this. So for instance, like the city of, I'm going to use the chat program, they are connected to the county. So when they do their budget, they reported their award to the county, and then the county set a dollar amount for every invoice that they do for their indirect and admin costs. So that's fine. We know what that money is going to. For a nonprofit, it could be something like Amber initially said like a profit loss statement, and I'll defer to her on this because this is her expertise. Like a profit loss statement, it could be just a general list of everything that you could use your indirects for, so that we make sure that that's aligned with Exhibit E. It would really be on a one-to-one with you and Amber and myself on what that exactly looks like. But we do need to have some type of documentation.
Okay, so since Amber's taken over, maybe instead of taking up time here, we could just complete that definite what you need from us. Because my understanding was you wanted the itemized receipts, and this sounds a lot more simple, a list of a profit and loss statement, things like that.
Yeah, so these are all just examples of things that we can collect. We will go over, once you do your invoice, exactly what we need from you, and then we will create that documentation for consistency. But yeah, you are actually on our list of meetings this week for Amber and myself.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
The floor is still open for discussion. If there is no discussion, we are looking for a motion to approve our first policy draft of our grantee manual.
Chelsea, this is Leslie. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve our first policy draft of our grantee manual. And I also just want to give a huge shout out to you and others who worked on this. This was a heavy lift, but I think it will provide greater clarity. Thanks to everyone who weighed in to help get us here too.
This is Marie. I'll go ahead and second that.
Thank you, Marie. We will vote by opposition in the chat. All right, not seeing anything. So our first draft of our grantee playbook has been approved. Thank you so much. And thank you for your comments, Commissioner Dahlkemper. That was definitely a lot going into that. Our next item of business is the advisory handbook. This is a framework for the GROC's Regional Advisory Committee. So we call it GROC Regional Advisory Committee for Excellence, or GRACE, and this guides how the advisory members support the Region 10 Council. Their core role is to bridge community experience and council governance to ensure evidence-based, locally informed opioid crisis strategies across the region. So they're a committee framework, not a board framework. The executive committee they advise the executive committee and the voting council on regional opioid response strategies. And then it gives a description of advisory membership types. So this was approved by the advisory committee. It was reviewed and voted ready to come to full council by the executive committee. So this would be our formal adoption. This first set of language comes from the IGA. It's copy pasted. So the voice sounds different than most of our other documents because it's not mine. And then it just explains why we have advisory committees in the first place. Then there's a narrative on the flow of the advisory committee, the executive committee, and the full council. I am working on a synopsis to go in our standard operating procedures manual that explains how the voting council is made up and selected and what those processes are, mostly for if I leave, when I leave, eventually that might happen, and someone takes over for me, that SOP is basically their handbook for their job. And so Clear Creek, Gilpin, and Jeffco all do their Board of County Commissioner approvals slightly different. And so just documenting how those voting members are chosen, and then also how the committee structure, executive committee, is built. It talks about the meeting structure. So we would do the advisory committee would be the first Thursday of the month. The executive committee would be the second Monday of the month. And then the full council would be the fourth Monday of the month. And it would be the same agenda. So we would be getting community feedback, that very detailed review from the executive committee. And then when we get to full council, things have been reviewed and commented on several times. So that should also help with engagement and just making sure that agendas are structured with intention. And then it has our attendance sheet of representation. Also just keeping in mind that we still need representation from Clear Creek and Gilpin. And then we did invite our participating local governments to attend these meetings, but I do not track them. I just record if they were there or not. They can send a different person every single time, but that way we can start to share information with the cities and the counties that make up Region 10, look at where we can collaborate on efforts across the region, not duplicating efforts. That's this manual. The floor is open for discussion. If there is no discussion points, we are looking for a motion from a voting member, preferably not Commissioner Dahlkemper.
Because I was ready. I was ready.
Dr. Chelsea, this is Kristen. I'm happy to move to approve the handbook.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Is there a second from a voting member we have not yet heard from?
This is Barb Weinstein. I'm happy to second.
Yay, thank you, Barb. We will vote by opposition in the chat. I'm not seeing anything, so this document has passed. This also officially makes GROC the region with the most policy. That is so exciting. On the screen, we have our finance report. Amber and I are working on different ways to present this to the council. We do have a financial transparency dashboard being built out that should be ready by the end of this month or December. But until then, this is showing all of our funds, the total money we've requested, our obligated and obligated funds that we have allocated to something in the strategic plan, how much we have allocated per funding group and what the balance of that is. And then it goes into individual grantees, how much has been paid to date, and then what the balance of their award is. It also shows you an anchor, what their total award was. I did want to talk about the program manager. That's my salary for 2025. I have been getting a paycheck, but we don't know exactly where my paycheck is coming from in the Workday system. So Amber is working to get that figured out, make sure we have money allocated in the right spot, just so people weren't worried.
Dr. Chelsea, I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the, so I just took a screenshot of the brief finance report, which talks about obligated and unobligated funds. And I really appreciate that pie chart, which shows a nice even distribution among those different categories. Question for you about capital kind of related expenses. So for example, I think of the Monarch House. Would that fall under the category of treatment, for example, or do we have a different category for those kinds of expenses?
It falls under the recovery the recovery section. And then, yeah, and then the Jefferson County Sheriff Biometrics, that was also a capital purchase. They are categorized under harm reduction. And these are all things that would show up on the Power BI financial transparency dashboard that will be available to the public by the end of this year.
Should they wish to do that deeper dive to learn about those specific allocations. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
And so, yeah, this next page right here in the narrative does say like Monarch is in the recovery bucket. And we do have some different narratives on our website, so you can look it up by county, you can look it up by funding area, you can look it up by service area. So we have a couple different ways that people can look at that. Great question. Moving on to general updates, our October 27th council meeting was canceled so that we could attend the state opioid conference. Region 10 was a sponsor. And so we had the most amazing food, the most amazing AV tech to support a very seamless and timely session flow. It was so amazing to hear so many stories and have so many people just feel really appreciated and have a lot of inspiration through the conference, and just knowing that we could support that, especially so that finances couldn't be a barrier. George, Sandy, do you have anything else to share?
I'll just say that I ditto that. I think just hearing from people that are in recovery and pitching in and doing great things in their community and really stepping up as leaders was so inspiring. But I also want to say that when AG Weiser mentioned Tanya Wheeler, the room like exploded in applause. So obviously she's well and well appreciated.
Little update on contracting. The ones in green are all done. So that would be Chat, Monarch, our unit grant management platform, Omni Institute as our external evaluation team, Advocates for Recovery Colorado, Resilience 1220, Mountain Youth Network, Gilpin Parks and Rec. Gilpin Parks and Rec, they have their contract. We're waiting for the legal team to review it. They initially had a November 1st start date, but we might have to change that to a 12/1 start date, depending on when we get the contract back. Jefferson County Public Health Recovery Works and Denver Recovery Group are all being drafted. I have seen the draft for Denver Recovery Group is in my inbox, so I have to review that today and kick that back to the legal team. And then we are still waiting on City of Lakewood and Jefferson County Sheriff's Office to get drafted. We are anticipating a 12/1 start date for most of these groups. It might go into January 1st, just with the holidays and when we receive contracts. Trying my best to backdate that as much as possible. Are there any questions about contracting and award status? Moving on. Our 2026 calendar is all set. As I previously mentioned, the advisory committee will meet for 60 minutes the first Monday of the month in a virtual setting. The executive committee will meet the second Monday of the month for 90 minutes in a virtual setting. The full council will meet for 2 hours on the fourth Monday of the month. In odd months, so January, February, March, April, May, those will be virtual meetings, and all of our even months will be in person, rotating across the counties. This is updated on our website. If you go to our landing page and scroll down to the bottom, it has upcoming meetings. And it does say whether those meetings are virtual, in person. All of our meetings will always have a hybrid option to them. They are right here, and you can subscribe to this calendar by clicking notify me. And so we will not be using the Google Calendar. I will not be sending calendar invites out to individuals who are not primary voting members of the calendar. That is a lot for me to keep track of, and we've had issues with all of the multiple calendars. So all of our community members, or if there is a meeting that you wish to attend that you are not a primary voting member, please, please, please subscribe to the calendar. It sends you a calendar invite. You get all of the updates. I am learning how to use the system to connect all of our documents in a single place, so we won't have many systems to manage. Calendar invites did go out last week to council members for full council. So if you did not get that, please let me know. And then I will get those updated. So our website did launch on October 1st. I'm still working on migrating content. I am learning Civic Plus. I am also a website developer now. That is a hat that I am learning how to wear. The 2025-2026 calendar is posted. The 2026 calendar is posted. All of the 2026 agenda materials and minutes will be on the website. So the Google Drive will only be used as an archive 2025 earlier. And then, as I mentioned, we have a Power BI financial transparency dashboard coming by the end of the year for different ways for our community to engage in how we spend our money. Okay, I'm gonna take a deep breath. Sometimes I feel like I talk to you folks so much. We have an amendment request from Resilience 1220. Their contract began almost 2 weeks ago now on November 1st. They're requesting an amendment to increase their award by $82,500 for an additional 60 youth in year 1. and 30 youth in year 2, so an additional 90 youth total. Their current award amount is $294,544.80. This amendment would bring their potentially new award amount to $377,044.80. The increase would go specifically to a budget line item of individual therapy for $111,000. And that would bring the new line item to $193,500. Their current service is 60 youth at 10 sessions each. This would increase their new services to 150 youth by 10 sessions each. The advisory committee reviewed and supported this amendment. The executive committee reviewed and supported the amendment moving forward to the full council. This is in your meeting materials packet on pages 18 and 19. I believe Laura just dropped the digital copy in the chat. The floor is open for discussion.
Chelsea.
Hey, Chelsea, can you just provide some context as to why they're asking for that?
That's what I was just going to add. Yeah.
Yes, so the nature of the amendment, if folks want to read their narrative, is that Resilience 1220 is based in Evergreen. And so they do a lot of work with the Evergreen High School that experienced the tragic shooting in September. And so that essentially like 4 times their intake in a week. They used to do like 3 or 4 intakes in a week, and now they're doing like 11 to 12 intakes in a week. And so the additional funding would help them further support their outreach across the region and the influx in youth.
This is Leslie. I'd like to put in a good word for Resilience 1220. They are a tremendous organization, and I appreciate that they're being proactive and coming to the GROC with this request in light of what they're seeing in real time on the ground in the community. And I do think that these will be dollars that are well invested as long as we feel that we're balanced with those unobligated funds that we have. And it looks like we have a fairly healthy amount still, in our account. So I would support this very much in terms of ensuring that there's more counseling and therapy available for youth in the community. And Chelsea, may I just clarify one thing? This is not limited to youth in Evergreen. This is an organization that serves the Foothills communities.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm so sorry, this was a very last minute addition. The state regional councils can call down or request funding that is available to them twice a year. It's November and I think it's like March or April. And based on our conversation in August or September, when we were in Clear Creek in September, I was hesitant to call down any more money until Amber and I could really work through our Exhibit E, our strategic plan, our workday, making sure all of our budgets are aligned. And we knew how much money we had. There was also concern that the state did not want regional councils to call down money with the purpose of accruing interest. But if we could call down money and we could accrue interest, great for us. And the council did want me to look into that. Amber and I met with the state last week, and based on that conversation, I decided to call down the money that was available to us, which is about $5 million, a little bit under that. And so I am working with Amber to figure out exactly how much money we have, because there is some blending of awards and expensing that we want to make sure that we have all the money allocated in the right places. And so I will present a line item cost amendment to the council in December when we have those exact numbers. But we do have roughly $8 million right now to award. And that money, if we don't award it out, will be accruing interest, and by this time next year, we could have about $200,000 extra in interest to use.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I've been quiet. I've been dealing with a little curveball I got in my personal life. I am, no big deal. I am just sort of seconding Leslie's comments, Commissioner Dahlkemper. I view this as squarely. Am I still, can you guys hear me? I just had a weird
We
thing.
can.
Okay. Great. I view this squarely in the realm of prevention, right? It's just we have had a traumatic event in our community, and when those traumatic events go unaddressed, they materialize later in terms of the kinds of things that this money is supposed to prevent.
If there are no other points of discussion, I am looking for a motion.
I will motion to approve this additional funds for Resilience 1220.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Sheriff Armstrong. We will vote by opposition in the chat. All right, this amendment has been approved. So Amber and I will add this to our list of things to get the council an update of our allocations and how much money we don't have obligated to anything. That brings us into our next proposal with a few extra minutes of time. I'm gonna see if Eric has any input before I introduce this.
I'm not sure I do up front, Dr. Chelsea, unless you have some particular point in mind.
Okay. So JCMH, let me back up. In September, the council did approve some additional funding mechanisms to the GROC. One of those included special interest projects. And so that would be in that process, if there was a timely project that a council member, a grantee, sets of grantees, advisory committee members find timely and deserved to be considered for funding outside of the traditional RFA, that it would, they would work with me to draft a proposal. Then that would go to the advisory committee for review. It would then go to the executive committee for review, and then it would come to full council for group discussion and decision. So JCMH was a 2025 applicant to our request for funding applications that did not advance, but several GROC voting members and other members of the review committee wanted to pursue funding. They just did not think we had the correct application prompt for the project, but the project itself was timely and deserving of funding. So I worked with JCMH to draft a proposal that went to the advisory committee, which did approve the recommendation that it advance and be considered for funding. The executive committee reviewed the proposal and had an interview with JCMH, and they feel that the proposal is ready to come to full council. So the full council does have a copy of that proposal, but JCMH is requesting $1.5 million to fund the Soteria Landing project, which will offer withdrawal management, ASAM 3.2, and residential recovery, ASAM 3.5, in addition to transitional residential treatment, ASAM 3.1, including wellness services, peer support services, and an on-site pharmacy for a responsive and comprehensive continuity of care. They do provide culturally relevant services, and there is a description on exactly how they do that. They initially asked for $8 million from the regional council. But there was confusion, or I don't want to, confusion is not the correct word. The budget was not, the line item budget in the format that our application provided did not provide for justification of the $8 million. So JCMH did come up with all of the clients they serve across the 19 regional councils. They identified the number of clients specifically with substance use disorder diagnosis and the clients specifically with an opioid use disorder diagnosis in Region 10. And that came up to the $1.5 million is what they were asking for in funding. They do provide a line item budget that it would go to pre-construction and project management, concrete and masonry, structural and carpentry, and interiors. They also provide a list of award disclosures, which is a new requirement moving forward, where they have pursued funding, what is pending, what was denied, what was approved, and for how much. And then they provide a preliminary evaluation plan, which was reviewed by Omni and is preliminarily acceptable. They will work closer with Omni if approved for an award, specifically on an evaluation of capital. And I will go ahead and open the floor for discussion.
Dr. Chelsea, this is Leslie. I have a question and then I have a comment or a thought for GROC's consideration today as we think about this request. And one of the aspects of this request that is exciting to me is, as a Gateway to the Rockies Opioid Council, we're leaving open this notion of revisiting ideas, clarifying, refining, and then coming back and talking about them further. And I think this is one of the most exciting proposals that we've had come forward to the GROC. Before I just share a thought with the group, I want to confirm the amount of unobligated funding as well as the accrued interest that Dr. Chelsea talked about earlier. So we're in the ballpark right now in our GROC bank account of approximately 4.6 million in unobligated funds, correct?
If we include the just approved Resilience 1220 amendment, I would say closer to 4.2 million.
Okay, that's a great point. That drops down a little bit. And then you also mentioned that you have drawn down the accrued interest. And did I hear that was in the amount of 5 million?
Not the accrued interest, just our available funds.
I'm sorry, the available funds. Okay.
It's okay. It's so confusing.
Yes, I wanted to clarify.
It's an hour-long meeting. It's very confusing. Yes, so that would just be the initial payment from the distributors that is available to us. And because we called it down, we put it in an interest-bearing account that will create accrued interest for us. And I anticipate that would be in the ballpark of 200,000 by this time next year.
See, that's a really great point, because there's a big difference between 200,000 in accrued interest and 5 million would have been a lot and would have been very concerning to us all. Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that I was getting the numbers correct in my head. In light of that, I would like to put on the table a suggestion or a recommendation to GROC. And I am wondering if we should consider increasing the funding allocation to the Jefferson Center for Mental Health for this specific proposal by 1 million. And I am suggesting that amount to help JCMH get closer to its capital campaign goal. But it's more than just that. It's also one-time funding. It's not ongoing. It would put the allocation more at 2.3 million, and that's toward a much, much larger renovation goal, which I believe is about 43 million. That's a huge number. The 2.3 million, in light of what Dr. Chelsea just said, is about a quarter of their original ask of 8 million, a little tiny bit over if my math is correct, which is, as you can tell, questionable at best. The other thing that I appreciate about this proposal and this initiative is that it's a one-of-a-kind operation, and I do think an additional infusion of dollars would position JCMH even more so to start those renovations next spring. Let's get this underway and move it forward. I also feel confident in knowing that JCMH has a strong plan for soliciting more donations in 2026 to reach its full 10 million capital. I think that's the capital campaign goal, but I know Dr. Chelsea, and I think we've got JCMH possibly on the line with us as well. Finally, I would just wrap up by saying that we have also heard from JCMH that its team is confident that it will secure the other funding. And this is really important to me if we're going to increase potentially our investment, depending on GROC's thoughts on this, that it will secure the other funding through new market tax credits, selling some of its buildings, and getting a reasonably sized loan from a lender to start the project and reach that full 43 million renovation goal. And to do that in a fiscally responsible way. They currently serve thousands of clients needing substance use treatment. I appreciate that we've also kind of drilled into those numbers a little bit further. And Soteria will serve the entire region. I am very much in tune with our concerns about ensuring that our entire region is fully covered. And while I know the best case scenario would be to have possibly a facility or something like this tailored to each county in the region, I am hopeful that the access right off of 6th Avenue will help somewhat, a little bit more in terms of accessibility from Gilpin and Clear Creek, barring actual, facilities or initiatives or programs tailored for Gilpin and Clear Creek in those communities. So those are just some thoughts, some rationale to put before the GROC regarding some additional dollars, given where we are with our bank account as well and the exciting nature of this project. Thank you so much.
We'll go Commissioner Hollingsworth and then Dr. Story.
Hi, thanks, Leslie. I think that was a good plug and many thoughts that I share as well. I wanted to just add that I'm on the Jefferson Center board as well as George. And so we're really up to date on what they're doing to get the funding for this project. And they are out very, very actively. But the new market tax credits are really coming to fruition. So that's a really exciting part of it. I wanted to just add that this centralized location, besides concentrating the different work groups together, it's more of that, one-stop shopping kind of model, but it also will support law enforcement because they'll have a more centralized place for people to come and be supported instead of different walk-in centers around. And so it's going to very much supplement what they're doing. But my question is, I think that as Chelsea was describing the decision process, they calculated the 1.5 million based on service to Gilpin, Jeffco, and Clear Creek. But I do want to point out that the funding that we've been giving out as a council has been to entities that don't only serve our 3 counties, and some have actually said that they couldn't even guarantee that their clientele would be there, like some of the residential programs. So I think that's important, is that this, Jefferson Center has been in business for 65 years, and so their service area is much greater. So I think I would support more funding given that as well. Thanks.
And I did create this running slide of the discussion because it is a lot of numbers. That way people can track along. We'll go Dr. Story and then Commissioner Marlin.
Thanks. So I'm wondering, looking at their current award tracker and disclosures, and from what I've heard from leadership or folks who are involved, I don't see the time argument here, the timeliness argument to not come back and apply in our regular in a regular fashion, because we are so far from breaking ground on the renovation. So I'm wondering if this is a leverage for other capital campaigns okay, but I would feel more comfortable with more information on where they're at in the capital campaign funding instead of taking the word of like, we're doing good. Because I'm looking, the math is not mathing on the award disclosures for the awards they haven't received. And even the awards that are pending, like with NCAP with the county, it's like, okay, but that's not getting us very close when we haven't even done a feasibility study or a community study to see whether this won't be the next pariah of a neighborhood, right? And having just gone through this with the Action Center, I don't want to give out money that then is used on interiors that for a building that doesn't open for another 10 years. And so I'm a little uncomfortable with that being out of the normal application process. So that's just my hesitation there on timing. The second is a clarification question. When it was not advanced, does that mean it wasn't advanced by you, Dr. Chelsea, or it wasn't advanced by the voting members or the reviewers?
Yeah, it was scored and it did not meet the threshold to advance past scoring into group discussion. And some of that had to do with our application did not ask questions relevant to capital investment. So we could have done better asking different questions. The review committee, the scorers really wanted more information on like what specific levels of care would be offered, what does culturally relevant services look like for them, not just using it as like a buzzword, and more of that detailed budget that is showed in the proposal on pages 25 and 26 of your meeting materials handout. I get what you're saying. Not like, where are they in that 6 million of building purchase? So that says cash funds raised to date, 705,000. Then the capital campaign goal is 9.3 million. Where are they at in that?
Right.
Yeah.
I just think that this is just me, so I'm one vote, but the clarification on where they're at, especially with new market tax credits pending on sales or pending on other studies, I have more questions about that. So I'll take those questions with me. That's fine, but do with that what you will. Thank you.
Eric, I know we have JCMH here. Are they allowed to comment?
I think that our chair has the discretion to allow them to comment, but we don't have a public comment time per se. So it's really up to the discretion of the board.
I am open to allowing JCMH to respond. I think that would be helpful. And Dr. Story, very much appreciate your points and Commissioner Hollingsworth's comments as well.
Can we clarify what NCAP is first? I feel like that's a quicker
Sure.
question.
Yeah, NCAP, I apologize. I cannot tell you off the top of my head what that acronym stands for. However, it is a fund that is under the Board of County Commissioners. It is dollars that we allocate based on recommendations from our Human Services team and other county leaders to different nonprofits across Jefferson County.
And I was able to locate that quickly and drop it in the chat. So that is the non-county agency program.
So by pending, did they mean that they applied? Or I know they were just in front of the BCC. That could have been for something else, but
to clarify, they were before the BCC with a funding request. So one of the issues that we're looking at is how do we best determine which funding streams we should look at for requests such as this? I do think that the BCC was very interested in funding this as it is located in Jefferson County, but that's a separate issue from what we're requesting right now. I also want to be really strategic and thoughtful. If we have GROC dollars and GROC is open to it, and I think answering those questions you raise is really an important part of this mix, and hopefully we'll hear from JCMH here in just a moment on that front. If we have available dollars, let's tap those dollars to help address those funding needs, not just for JCMH, of course, but for other organizations as well. So those are just some quick thoughts to share.
I want to see if Commissioner Marlin's question, if he still had a question. And then I see Sandy's hand back up. And then if we wanted to open the floor at that time to JCMH. Sandy, I'll go to you.
I don't really have my hand up. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It was left out.
Okay. And then George, was your question already answered? Or did you want to tap in? Oh, we can't hear you. I see your lips moving. I see you're not muted. Maybe. I heard a click. Okay, George said let's hear from JCMH while he works on audio.
I can speak from Jefferson Center. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So hello everyone, I'm Jessica Dunbar, Chief Business Development Officer, and I'm joined here by our grants manager, Talia. And I just want to make sure that I have the questions that identified. So there was a question about the new market tax credits that are secured and planned, and then the pending building sales that help us reach our $43 million goal. Are those accurate?
Dr. Story?
Yeah, it's also how far along are you in your capital campaign for your first 10 million?
Sure, great. So I'll speak to, again, this vision of Soteria Landing. We appreciate consideration for the opioid dollars to help us realize this large vision. It is estimated to cost $43 million, and we have a diverse funding strategy to reach that goal. So we have put $6 million towards the purchase and initial design of that, which is part of this overall goal. We do plan to sell 2 buildings. One is actually already, we're far along with a buyer who then wants to lease back the property for a couple years until Soteria Landing is open. So that purchase, we believe is we're getting a good offer on that. And then the other building would be where walk-in crisis and detox is now. And we know that that is a very highly attractive property that has a lot of interest. So the new market tax credits, we've actually been able to pursue 2 phases to this. There is one phase that we're about to close on, and that will return over $4 million to Jefferson Center. We're partnering with the Colorado Enterprise Fund, and we can recognize working capital and expenses we've incurred over the last couple of years can be funneled through this opportunity that then allows us to have $4 million towards Soteria Landing. And then that will also allow us to have a second new market tax credit opportunity with even more community development entities that can allocate tax credits in the next cycle in 2026. And so we're marching along there, and that also would help us with that $7 to $8 million return over a period of time. So not only we initially thought we would have 7 to 8 million, but we were able to even execute on something sooner to open up $4 million. With the $10 million capital campaign goal, we have, like Chelsea said, secured a little over 700,000. We've completed a feasibility study where over 31 key stakeholders, some of you were part of it, were interviewed to help us think about this vision, gain interest in the vision, how can we communicate, build community engagement, and actively fundraise at all levels. And so we are still in that silent phase of the capital campaign. And these dollars plus funding that we did request of Jeffco, along with funding requests to multiple foundations, including the Gates Family Foundation. We just had a call with them this morning. They are considering our $100,000 request. And the Breton Family Foundation is another one we've applied to. And we've had several conversations with other foundations like the Colorado Trust, Colorado Gives Foundation, Colorado Health Foundation, and beyond, that we will continue to explore funding opportunities over the next couple of years of our capital campaign. So we're still in that early phase. Commitments now really build momentum to help us get started next spring with construction, and we'll continue to fundraise as we get going. Any other questions on that?
Is there a reason why with this amount that you have earmarked, it looks like for certain parts of construction, right? When I guess what's the downside? What's the upside in doing this now versus the downside in waiting until you are closer to actually laying floor down to be able to say, we spent this money on that thing we told you we were going to do? So you could follow that dollar through on the application? Or is this in particular timing that is meant for something else?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. So this really is a critical window for us as we work to secure the next round of new market tax credits and try to have, limit the size of the loan. And cash and awards that we can say are committed to the project allow us to negotiate that deal with our lenders in the spring. And so it really positions us to carry less debt and start off strong.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Chelsea,
Dr.
you're
Sherby,
muted.
Chelsea.
My dogs were barking, so I muted myself. You would think I have this figured out now. Thank you, folks. We do have a comment in the chat from Michael Miller, a question rather. Will Soteria Landing's withdrawal management capacity replace all existing JC withdrawal management locations or augment some existing?
Yes, thank you for that question. So we have our detox center that is in the same place as our walk-in crisis center. Both of those would move to Soteria Landing, and we plan to expand bed capacity too. And so we want to keep them integrated and then also have it all under one roof with our adult residential recovery program and other wellness and resource navigation programs that we know we can do even more to support people through all of those levels of care and make it more seamless, and will, I think, even improve outcomes that we have today. So that is our main, we have one main detox program, and that will be part of this overall vision.
Michael responded, understood, thanks. I do want to check back in with Commissioner Marlin.
I think I've got it figured out.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you all. So yeah, I just want to share my perspective on this request and my support for increasing the amount that we're talking about giving. I do want to preface this just by saying I don't want anyone on the GROC, Dr. Story, anybody else, to feel like we have to make a decision this month. I don't hear that a decision this month is mission critical. But I do think that mission critical is the right term for this request. I think first off, the work of the Jefferson Center is mission critical to the work of opioid abatement. And I do think this project is mission critical to the work of the Jefferson Center. They are the most important organization in Region 10 doing this work. And like all of our organizations are facing some headwinds related to everything that is happening. I'll just leave it at that. But even before all of that, this project was really exciting to me. I love that it pulls the capital closer to the mountain area and it makes it more accessible to folks in Clear Creek County and Gilpin County. But it's the integration that I really love about this. One of the most troubling statistics in this work is transitioning between levels of care and between types of service as you advance in your pathway towards recovery. And it's a statistic that's personal for me because I've had a family member both succeed when they do make it through those different levels and not succeed when they don't. And so I think that I can't think of a better way to spend GROC dollars than to make sure that Soteria Landing is successful. I think the landscape has shifted a lot since envisioning this project and now being kind of at the doorstep over the next, I don't know how long, I'm not going to say how long, over the next short time period, in making sure that we can actually do this. And I think when we do, we're going to be setting in a long term the best path for success that we can. And I do have a bias for the long term here. So I'll just leave it at that. I mean, I would vote yes today on what was requested plus $1 million. I would be happy to defer to members of the council that want to ask more questions. I am viewing this in the light of we've put the applicants in the regular RFA process through quite a bit of interrogation, and I'm more than supportive of interrogating this project fully over this meeting and future meetings. But so I'll just leave that there.
I do see Michael Miller's hand raised.
Do you want me to go, or are you trying to move us along?
Yeah, you could go.
Okay. Just to Commissioner Marlin's point, I personally have some questions around withdrawal management. Nobody's surprised. And would love the opportunity for other board members, advisory board members, if they have questions, to be able to understand a little bit more clearly about the ultimate kind of what Jefferson Center is hoping to accomplish with this space. So I would, as a non-voting member, love an opportunity to ask some further questions, but I'm not sure if this is the best forum for that right at the moment.
I'll defer to Eric, but I think this is the best time to ask those questions before we decide to make a decision on tabling this for next month, funding it, not funding it. This is the end of the discussion. So I think that would be a great conversation for people to understand.
Yeah, this is a perfectly appropriate time to ask those questions. It's possible that Michael is concerned that we're going to run short on time. And so certainly another option is to continue this issue over. But I think on your agenda, you still have time for this issue.
Yes, I did pocket. We ran ahead on some other things, and so we have until 2:35, and it's only 2:15.
So if it helps, my main question is the rationale around maintaining the existing ASAM level of care for withdrawal management as opposed to endeavoring to a higher level of care in order to meet the expanded needs as the drug supply becomes further chaotic. And from kind of the anecdotal things that we're hearing at public health and the syringe service program around folks leaving withdrawal management against medical advice because their withdrawal symptoms aren't being effectively managed. So that's one of the things that I've honestly been really excited about with GROC working with Jefferson Center kind of generally, is to figure out how to leverage opioid settlement fundings to get us to the highest level of care we could in order to be able to meet those needs. Just because that kind of clinical capacity, if it does exist really in the region, it is largely inaccessible. So that was like a comment and a question wrapped into one. I apologize.
And I'll defer to JCMH if you folks have a comment.
I can briefly speak to that. We can certainly get more information to you. I think the best person on our team to speak to that would be our Director of Acute Care Services, Andrea Turk. But what I can say is, at the highest levels, there is more of that medical integration, and we would have to really do a bigger financial analysis around the cost of running that 24/7 highest level program, and if we could sustain it. We certainly want to, I think, with this vision of bringing adult residential recovery into the same shared space as detox, we aren't able to do that right now, and that will be a huge opportunity to, of course, help with seamless transitions and meet future ASAM requirements that we know are coming. And so that is a big part of why we want to design this space where all of these things can come under one roof.
There might be a longer term vision here where the GROC does start to make that network of care, and we do that needs assessment of what would it cost, how do we fund it, and our current grantees are helping collect that data and that needs assessment. That's definitely something that we can speak with Omni about after their first year of evaluation, if that's something that they can also help the GROC take on, of what would additional investments look like to create that collaborative care and handoff.
Yeah, and I think, one thing that is important to highlight is we own this 100,000 square foot building, and the plans we have to date are for the first 2 floors, so 2/3 of that space. We have an open 3rd floor that we've seen as, we can be creative in a future phase of what would be the best way for us to add services, collaborate with community partners, service partners, and beyond, to build the capacity that the community needs. And so I invite all of you to be part of that with us. We have space where we can assess what would be the best use of that in the future, building on the initial services that we're starting with.
Michael, do you have more to include?
Yeah. Do y'all have existing data on how the current and proposed same level of withdrawal management care is working? I'm really I'm curious if the anecdotal data that we're seeing is the same in the data y'all are seeing, or if we're just interacting with the people who are most likely to be leaving against medical advice, that kind of thing. Because as a community member, that's really, to be completely transparent, my biggest hang up with with an additional capital award for a new facility is if the level of care being proposed isn't meeting the current need. Why would we continue investing in kind of a half measure? Like, I see the value in being able to have withdrawal management at any level, right? But I just like to be able to better understand the problem so that I could make an informed decision, not being a decision maker here. And I'll shut up after that.
That is something that the council can request if they want to give. I know, Jessica, we definitely put you on the spot with this. But again, we did say that this might be a process. If the council wants to see some of that information and give JCMH a time to find it, we can put this on the December 8th agenda meeting agenda.
This is Leslie. I am absolutely open to that. I think it's important that we drill down into some of the questions that are coming up, that we're totally transparent. We're getting the answers that we need from JCMH. I do have a question about timing in terms of JCMH and this, one of the things that we keep coming back to is the critical window as you secure those new market tax credits. If we're able to come back next month in December, are we still within that critical window, knowing that we will be working with you in the interim to get those, questions answered, to have some more conversations as well? And looking at that additional dollar amount, we're looking on top of the 1.5. And I think I was suggesting another million added to the award potentially, but we might talk about that too. So, but just your quick thoughts on the window of opportunity. Are we still good with that December meeting?
Yes, I appreciate that. We are, we want to answer all the questions, do all the due diligence that's needed for people to feel comfortable. So we really believe, like, by the end of the year, if we could secure funding to put us in a good position as we then early next year work with the new market tax credit entities and bring, a lender to the table. By the end of the year would be great for us to know if we could count on dollars from this specific fund.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So what I can do now is I would like an official motion from a voting member to table this for next month. But what I would do is I would work with Laura on the meeting minutes and following up with the folks who did ask critical questions, work with JCMH to get those questions answered, and then have this scheduled again for about 20 minutes on the December 8th meeting.
This is Leslie. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to table the JCMH request and the additional request for more dollars on top of the requested 1.5 million, and then the added amount of 1 million to our December meeting for the reasons specified by Dr. Chelsea.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Dr. Story. We will vote by opposition in the chat.
Could you summarize the questions again, Chelsea, so that I can make sure that those are accurate? I had a question about the additional money too, and I think that would be good if Leslie, I wish Leslie was around me more often to say, like, just take more money. Like, here's your allowance, and here's some more. if you want. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
because
just
you know me, that's how I'm
yeah,
because you know me, that's how I roll, like not at all.
holding my hands out. I would like to the point made, I believe, somewhere else along the conversation and accounting for that additional amount. So if we said, okay, here's 2.3. But I also think that from a budget perspective and an evaluation perspective, to ensure that the questions asked are as stringent as those of us who went through this process and were awarded and did not get to speak up for ourselves, did not get to answer questions during the review. So that's, we'd just be very careful because this is a larger amount of money than anyone was awarded in the competitive round, that doing something like this at this level without that clear, like, I can follow this dollar to this piece of masonry is, I think, really critical for trust building. So that's that. And whatever Michael says. I think the feasibility study and thinking through services and acute care like programming, if JC Mitch is not already like engaged with our harm reduction team, who pretty big regionally, I would very much encourage that conversation to take place, to dig into some of the more nuanced technical stuff. So, Michael doesn't have to bring that to this forum. Anyway, thank you. Going on mute. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so what there's been a lot of questions and a lot of conversation. So that's why I said I cannot summarize them right now. I was going to review the meeting minutes and the recording with Laura, who is taking minutes for us right now. And then I will summarize the people who have questions and I'll send it back to you to make sure that I'm capturing them correctly. And then I'll work with JCMH to get them answered. And I'll kind of do a little bit of a back and forth to make sure that all the questions are getting answered fully before we bring it back to the full council.
Dr. Shore Miller,
yes.
I wanted to make a suggestion before we move to the next item. I don't know that we've considered that motion passed yet.
No, not yet.
Okay, well then I'll just make this comment as people are taking time to vote. I think it would be wise to ask everyone, there's a lot of folks that we have not heard from, to ask if you do have a question, to please get it submitted to, I presume, you, Dr. Shore Miller, so that we can get all the questions on the table and get them all answered and treat this just like we treated all of the requests during the RFA process.
Yes, please feel free to email me this week with any questions, even if they are just in rough draft format. And that is also why this the special projects is structured to go to the advisory committee and then the executive committee and then here, is so that we get a lot of those questions answered, and then the presentation of the full council can be more thorough. So again, I do encourage our community members to attend those advisory committee meetings, executive committee meetings, full council meetings, whatever your schedule does permit. So I am looking to finalize this vote. So the motion was to table this for December 8th. And that was motioned by Commissioner Dahl-Kemper, seconded by Dr. Story. And now I'm taking oppositions in the chat. All right, so again, I will be in contact with JCMH, folks who ask questions, make sure that we get a very thorough review for our December 8th meeting. And now, without further ado, I would like to pass it off to Common Spirit to present their community needs, their community assessment, specifically on mental health and substance use results. So I think I did, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Amber, I did make you a co-host. Was anyone else I needed to make a co-host to present?
Can you hear me okay, Dr. Chelsea?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm having some computer issues. I'm off camera and my microphone too is a little wonky. If you could have Ashley Phillips, who's on, be co-host or have sharing capability, that would be ideal since I think she'll be running the show.
Done.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
And sharing on WebEx is very not intuitive.
Well, let's see how I did. Do you see it? It's not in
Yeah.
presentation mode, but okay, awesome. And let's see if I can get
I
it.
will give you until about 2:55.
All right, not a problem. Thank you for inviting us to be here and join your meeting today. I'm Ashley Phillips, Region Director of Community Health and Community Benefit Reporting. That my region is Utah, Colorado, and Kansas. So I have 20 hospitals, and all of our needs assessments were due this year. So just had a few things to undergo and tackle these past months. So if you're not familiar with needs assessments for a hospital, they are required of us every 3 years by the IRS. And part of the work is that we identify significant health needs, social drivers or determinants, whatever you prefer, of health, identify the needs of various populations, and the process includes engaging with the community. Because we had so many hospitals, we did hire an organization called Professional Research Consultants to help complete our needs assessments here for 7 of our 9 communities here in Colorado. One of the first things we do is we want to determine what is the service area of our St. Anthony's Hospital. That is where we receive 75% or more of our patients. Being a hospital with a level 1 emergency department and Flight for Life, we get a lot of folks from a lot of different areas, but mostly our patients are coming from Jefferson and Clear Creek County. So part of the needs assessment looks at data, statewide, national data, statewide, county data, census, vital statistics, and such. We also do a lot of online key informant surveys, in-person, over the phone key informant surveys as well, and really look at the local health surveys too. When we did our surveys, we wanted to make sure that our sample size mirrored the population and characteristics of Jefferson and Clear Creek. So that's why you'll see that we have similar folks that identify as white or Hispanic, older than 65 and such is very similar. So what we've determined is we look at a lot of those surveys. So when we talk to folks in the community, it's good news that most everyone said that they have pretty good, excellent, or very good overall health status. But you still see that portion in orange and red that was fair and poor. So we dive a little bit more into that 13.2% that said, no, not doing so great. And how does that compare to the United States and Colorado, and then for our community? So we're doing better overall, but I don't know, 13.2 isn't great, right? Want to see those numbers go down. From that 13.2%, where did those folks fall in? We had a lot of individuals that were very low income and low income, LGBTQ plus folks. And as far as age, it was that 40 and older population. We also asked about social determinants of health, and took a look at the percent of population living in poverty. And for the St. Anthony Hospital service area, it's lower than Colorado, lower overall than the United States, but I think it's still relevant to take a look at that percentage. We asked that our survey respondents, if they had to cover a $400 emergency expense, could they do so? And, not great. There's a significant amount of folks that would not be able to do so. Obviously, it would be not surprising to very low income and low income folks. Again, the LGBTQ plus would struggle to cover that $400 expense. And on this, that was different. It was your younger and middle-aged folks. We asked about their housing conditions and how many would it say that they're living in unsafe housing, and lower among homeowners, higher among renters at 23.4%. But again, your low income, younger folks, and women and LGBTQ plus had more experiences of living in unsafe housing conditions. Again, food insecure, looking at all these social determinants of health, not surprising. Again, low income, very low income, Hispanic, LGBTQ plus, and younger and middle-aged folks. We asked our respondents if their perceptions about social determinants of health and if it was a problem in the community. And a majority of folks did consider it a major problem or moderate, with only a few calling it a minor problem. Nobody's saying that it was a problem, not a problem at all. So looking at all this data and information, we first identify the needs based on the review of the population survey findings and secondary data. Then we want to look at prioritizing them by stakeholder feedback. And from that, these are how the health priorities were ranked, with mental health being the biggest concern, access to care, nutrition, physical activity, diabetes, and substance use. So, yeah. And I think they all really do overlap, that none of these, live in silos. So I narrowed down the conversation today to just talk about mental health, access to healthcare, and substance use, given the time constraints and the priorities of this group. So mental health, suicide mortality, although we're hearing some good news about numbers coming down, that's still pretty high for St. Anthony's service area. A little bit lower than Colorado, but not by much, and much higher than overall in the United States. Number of mental health providers per 1,000 population, still pretty low, not surprising compared to Colorado, but better than across the United States. Perception of mental health as a problem in the community. Everybody said it was either a major or a moderate problem. So that's part of why it is our #1 health priority. Again, people that experienced fair or poor mental health in St. Anthony's service area, 24.4%, which, I'm not sure I can explain this. I'm so sorry. Let me skip this. I'll find out exactly why this is United States versus service area, PRC's service area. I apologize. I'm not sure how to interpret their slides on this. Again, have some of the survey population have experienced symptoms of chronic depression. Very low income, LGBTQ+, women, and the younger population and middle-aged have higher experiences, or reporting higher experiences of chronic depression than the other categories of populations. Folks that said, they said they had a hard time getting mental health services in the past year. We try to dive into this, low income, very low income, younger folks, kind of look at, is that because they maybe don't have insurance or very good insurance? LGBTQ+ could be that there isn't enough culturally competent care and providers out there. So really trying to, in moving forward, in kind of figuring out how do we dig a little bit deeper into this information and data. I kept access to healthcare services because if you're not going to your primary care visits, and I think most people are aware that a lot of individuals will visit their primary care doc before they have contemplated suicide. And so looking at, what is the primary care physicians per our population. One thing I'll note that I don't know how to address this. This is only primary care physicians. It doesn't include advanced practice nurses and other providers, but it is a little bit, for just primary care docs, we're a little bit lower in our county than others. Lack of healthcare insurance, and I think this is a huge concern that we're really thinking about, although it's less than Colorado, it's more the United States, but I think we're going to have a lot more concerns in this area as Medicaid redetermination and requirements are rolled out. So we're really looking at this closely and what we can do to address it. Perceptions that access to care is a problem. Significant number of folks thought it was a major or moderate problem. So what can we do to make access easier in the future? Certain barriers that was identified when we asked was getting a doctor's appointment, finding a doctor in general, the cost, inconvenient office hours. I think we've all experienced that. Lack of transportation, and it's not as bad as in the United States, but still, if you can't get there, you can't get the care. Experience difficult or delays of some kind in receiving the care that is needed. A lot of the folks that we interviewed and talked to experienced issues with this and delays. And again, the same population that have been identified in other slides, but that's a pretty high percentage of folks that weren't able to get care or experience difficulties in doing so. And last but not least, substance use. So I'll slow down a little bit here. One thing that was really unique about this needs assessment is that alcohol was identified in all of the needs assessment as being of large concern, quite frankly. That the alcohol-induced mortality rates are very high overall throughout Colorado and definitely in our St. Anthony's service area. This is something that we've worked a lot in the opioid reduction and fentanyl, addressing fentanyl use and overdose, but we haven't really talked about how we will impact alcohol use, alcohol misuse. So again, engaged in excessive drinking, lower than the United States, higher than overall in Colorado. Unintentional drug-induced mortality, still a little bit lower, but not low enough. I'm sure everybody in this room would agree. Illicit drug use in the past month, a little bit lower than overall in the United States. Hopefully that is some of your messaging and the work that you all are doing to decrease those numbers. Used a prescription opioid in the past year. Quite a few folks overall have done so. Life has been negatively affected by substance use. So this could be for yourself or by a family member or somebody else that affected you. It's overall higher than the United States for our community here. LGBTQ+, very low income, younger, middle-aged women. But still overall, I just look at this whole chart and think that's just too many. Perception that substance use is a problem, similar to mental health and others. Most all consider it a major or moderate program, or at best a minor problem, but overall it's a concern to the community. All right, I'm going to pause there. Can I answer? I know we're really fast. Can I answer any questions? There's a whole lot of data. Our community health needs assessment is much more detailed than this, but I just want to pull out a few key slides. So once we complete our needs assessment, I did have a community meeting, invited everybody I know in my email directory to attend that, because we'd like to share out these results and ask for feedback, and we'll continue to try to have those meetings as we advance on our community health implementation plans and strategies. So once we decide or see what are these major problems in our community, that we're not, like, okay, that's fine. Now we have to actually do something about those. That too is required by the IRS and our healthcare policy and finance here in Colorado to write out a what we call a CHIP, Community Health Implementation Plan, that outlines what are we going to do about these problems. And so with that, I am going to turn it over. We were going to stick to the areas of substance use today, but we have a whole plan around mental health with zero suicide initiative of screening individuals in the hospital. I'm sorry. Okay. Screening folks in the hospital, having better care coordination, phone call follow-up plans that we engage in, and other initiatives around mental health. And for access to care, it's social determinants of health screening, increasing our number of community health workers that will provide care coordination, our financial advisors and partnerships to help individuals get enrolled in insurance or Medicaid or stay enrolled. And so we have a whole plan and strategy, but for today's conversation, we wanted just to stop and talk about what we're doing in response to substance use.
Thanks, Ashley. I can take over from here. Hi, all. Amber Courtier, Quality Outcome Program Coordinator. Similar to Ashley, I'm in a regional role, so I support all the hospitals in Colorado, Utah, and Western Kansas. And for the most part, what you're seeing here, anticipated impacts, has been universal and standardized for all our hospitals.
the data that we just saw from Ashley's presentation, thank you, Ashley, reflected pretty similarly in other communities as well. And that being that alcohol continues to be, and even more so now, a major problem for communities. So we wanted to make sure within our anticipated impacts for this new updated chip that we are recognizing not only the harms of a community from opioid misuse and individuals needing care with OUD, opioid use disorder, but also alcohol. So with that said, what we intend to commit to, and this will be all on the website, right, Ashley, for review later, and maybe we can provide that to Dr. Chelsea as follow-up in meeting minutes to review all the details once published, is we're going to continue to enhance our medications for opioid use disorder initiative that's been in practice now for about 6 years in our system. We piloted initially in Westminster, St. Anthony North, and now it's been standardized and scaled across our entire region. So all hospitals in Utah, Kansas, and Colorado practicing the ability to initiate patients on buprenorphine in the emergency department. What we're going to be doing these next few years is completing discovery and piloting MAUD, so medications for alcohol use disorder. Again, recognizing that alcohol being this major problem. Thanks, Ashley. In chat, I see those who want to reference the community health website that's there now for you to look at. And then we're going to continue distributing naloxone kits. We are a member of the Naloxone Project. Those who are familiar, TNP, Common Spirit Health is a member and has been a member for many years. Comprehensive substance use disorder services. So just talking about overarching all substances as a healthcare system, enhancing provider training, making sure best practices are available. We are the largest nonprofit healthcare system in the country. And with that, we have really great access to other expertise and other regions across the nation that are doing some really exciting things. So we have opportunity to learn from each other. And what we formed earlier this year was a subgroup or a subcommittee. So we're kind of learning from each other in that format. So that's exciting to be able to bring those learnings to this region. And then partnering with treatment organizations like many of you here on the call who are the ones boots on the ground providing care, finding ways to make sure there's more handoffs and that we as a healthcare system and behavioral health service line are finding opportunities to increase access to services and care. And expanding our best practice models that have already been in place, like ESPER. Those not familiar, it's an evidence-based early intervention prevention model of screening, brief intervention, and referral to treatment for those who are demonstrating or reporting use and then intervening early. And I just make mention here internally, we're reporting on all these things. We're hoping in the future to do some kind of town hall format to be able to let the larger public be informed and up to date on our progress. Ashley, I think I have one or two more slides ahead after this. Yeah, you mentioned this a bit, like we're talking primarily on substance use response since that's the most relevant subject for this audience. But as Ashley mentioned, we are engaged in zero suicide, finding ways to increase access to behavioral health services, and then psychiatric service, which has been exciting this fiscal year and late last fiscal year, starting a consultation service that has been well utilized across our system. And Ashley is the last slide for questions. Nope, we got a few more goals. Sorry, then we'll hopefully have time for questions. As you can see here, I won't read it verbatim, but we have goals. So from those anticipated outcomes, how are we going to do that? So again, continuing to enhance that MOUD model, finding ways to address opioid misuse, and not mentioned here in great detail, but ALTOs, those alternatives to opioids. So giving those non-opioid medications or those non-pharmaceutical interventions to manage pain while folks are under care. You can go to the next slide, Ashley, please. Mentioned again, ESPERT, finding ways for our workforce to be expanded and scaled across the system to be able to screen universally, and of those who are at risk or identifying risky use, being able to provide that motivational interviewing to motivate change, and then making that warm handoff or connection to care. And I'm excited that alcohol use disorder is being brought to the table for this chip, just simply for the fact knowing and now seeing data validating that it really is an area that we need to do more to target. So more to come on that. And then, one more, yeah. So internally, we have some funding, some resourcing that we're committing to be able to put into practice. We have, infrastructure that's already in place. I mentioned there's now a National Substance Use Disorder Subcommittee that we're learning lessons from each other on. And then collaborators who are already in the community of those we serve that we can learn from, collaborate, and work together. This will be sent as follow-up, so you all can look over more closely. I see some people are transitioning up. So I wanted to give just the rest of our 4 minutes to any questions.
I really just want to say thank you so much for this presentation. It's come up a long way, really tailored to Region 10 since our brainstorming meeting. And I think it fits very well with the revised strategic plan that I am hoping to present to the council in January, by February at the latest. So thank you so much. And I do look forward to continue learning from you folks as our data collectors, along with your counterparts at Lutheran Hospital and JCMH.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. And feel free, Dr. Chelsea, and in your meeting minutes to put our contact information if there were questions that come up after. Thanks for the time.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Are there any other questions or comments from the floor?
I see a question, but I can't hear.
Sorry, audio. I figured it out again. Okay. I don't know that this is answerable with the time we have left, but one of the things that sticks out to me is when we look at reporting on alcohol overuse, the numbers don't indicate the kind of death rates that we are seeing in the data. And I was wondering if you all noticed that too, what you might have thought about that. Yeah.
I'm sorry. And what are you asking about the death rates?
From alcohol, there are like alcohol overuse. There was a slide about alcohol overuse, and we were way above the national average, which matches my preconceived notions. But then the self-reporting on people who report overuse was pretty low compared to the national average. I'm just curious what observations you might take from that.
Oh, personal observations? Because I'd have to ask PRC about like some data driven. I wonder, how honest people are.
Yeah, I could probably comment as a social scientist how normalized drinking behavior is, or even just substance use behavior, if something is a problem or not a problem. So it's like my research again in my PhD was mostly on college students. If you're going to school, you have a job, you have decent grades, it doesn't matter how much you're using alcohol or drugs, you're still a high achieving person. So is it a problem? You're going to say no. But that doesn't mean that you don't have financial unwellness, creative unwellness, relational unwellness in other aspects of your life. And so learning to look at your misuse or use disorders, like misuse habit, those are all very niche things, but learning to look at them in different aspects of your life. And yeah, just there is a response bias. You don't want people to know how much you use, so your self-report is going to be lower.
Very well said.
I know in other communities, we're looking at ways that there's campaigns or messaging that's out there to talk about the connection between, like what you just mentioned, Dr. Chelsea, like just wellness and alcohol use. And we're not talking necessarily about those with alcohol use disorder, just, using in a way that has inhibited creativity or productivity, and just not being your best whole self because of your alcohol use. So yeah, we're excited to find ways that we can, as a major healthcare system, employer, community partner, align and collaborate.
This is definitely an area that we want to talk with public health about. We're meeting with Broomfield Public Health about messaging around this, not abstinence, but how your life could be better with less.
Dr. Story, absolutely. Yeah, just the definition of overuse too. It depends on what kind of results we're seeing. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say that this is actually like a third rail policy issue that we want to take on next year. And so I think if we're going to like increase revenue for health equity, public health in the future, like we have to have some tough conversations about the inadequacies of our alcohol taxes in the state compared to other states and the outcomes that we're seeing. So I am really so grateful that you have dug in. I also am grateful to see a hospital do a CHNA/CHIP in their lane. I don't know how to say it in a nicer way, but often I'll hear these, and I've heard hundreds by this point in my career, where they'll be like, we're taking on food insecurity and social determinants and upstream and structural racism. And you're like, and you're a hospital. So what are you going to do in your hospital? Like, and this looks like very discrete, clear ways to address. And so I'm really excited, and anything we can do to support you and learn from you, we would love to do that. So thank you for this presentation. Just because my video is off doesn't mean I'm not paying attention. I'm usually eating. I'm doing anything, I'm eating. So thank you so much for your presentation.
Absolutely. In fact, I've been working on meetings with our public health departments to share our implementation plans and strategies and talk through like what could we do to align these efforts and coordinate our actions with those that public health is taking, and what are the opportunities, because we are a hospital. We're not going to do a public health campaign, and in writing the CHIP, really looking at that acute side and then also trying to look at preventative so that we had goals and strategies around both that acute and preventative area on all of our health priorities.
Commissioner Hollingsworth, in our last few minutes.
Hi, thank you, Ashley. That was really interesting information. I'm in Gilpin County, and I know that this didn't include Gilpin County in the data. I guess my question is, did you collect? Because the St. Anthony Hospital System is the go-to for our emergency responders, and we actually have a county-wide ambulance service. So we don't use, Denver-based area ambulances. So I'm just wondering if you did collect data and if that's something you can share. And then I also want to echo what everyone has spoken. Our public health director also is questioning and wondering about alcohol use numbers, and if an entity like GROC could delve more into alcohol, because often they're meshed together, and it's hard to tease out, what's the underlying factor for their needs and their struggles.
Let me see what I can find for you with data. I don't think PRC would have had any, but we use Policy Map nationally as Common Spirit Health and could probably pull some data around that for you.
Thank you.
And I'm happy, I know we're out of time. I'm happy to come back or have other conversations on our strategies or a different meeting to connect. I'm happy to do so as well.
Yes, this will not be the last time we see and hear from you. Just to go over the chat in our last minute, Michael Miller said, thanks for all the work so far. I'm excited to see what comes of this partnership. Linda Behringer said, current residents at their sober living home Just Living, of 15 of them, 13 list alcohol as their drug of choice along with other substances. And then Commissioner Marlin said, beyond these dynamics between actual stats and self-reporting, he was struck by the fact that we are doing both worse than the national average and perceive ourselves as doing better than the national average. There's something special happening here in Colorado. And then that will conclude our meeting for today. Thank you so much to everyone who attended. Our December 1st Executive Committee meeting has been canceled. Our next meeting will be of the Advisory Committee on December 4th. Then we have our full council meeting on December 8th, where we will hear from our 2024-2025 or cohort one awardees. And then we will start the new year, January 8th. Remember to subscribe to the calendar feature on our website. I will stay on in case folks have additional questions, comments, or concerns. But thank you all so much for attending. Enjoy your Thanksgiving holiday. That's something
Thanks,
you celebrate.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.